Greetings, everyone, and I'm really glad to see you all today at another episode of Unscripted ASMR. And today I'm having a little experiment with sound. No Mr. Yeti with us, just this teeny tiny microphone. So yeah, that's what my plan is. And before we begin talking, I prepared you a really nice hot cup of tea. It's not sweet because it's really hot outside, and I thought a sweet drink will not really suit the situation. And you say, but Anne, hey, it is really hot, and you say it's hot outside. Yes. You know what? I heard that some tribes, some people that live in the desert, actually drink hot beverages, and somehow this helps them to cool down on the opposite. There's some scientific explanation about it, but I don't remember it. So let's just trust the process and drink some nice hot tea. I place it near you, and I have a little oddly specific topic for you today to discuss. This idea came to me when I recently finished a video game. To be specific, it was Baldur's Gate 3, but we're not talking about the game itself. Just in case anyone wonders, I played as a Dark Urge bard to play the last chord in the lives of so many NPCs, and I did not romance the vampire. So we skipped that part. When I finished the game, when I beat the last boss, I found myself in a really stupid situation. My pockets were full of loot. That crate in the camp was full of loot. My companions' backpacks were full of loot. I literally had enough weapons to arm a small army and enough food to, feed a small village. And I have like maybe a few hundreds of unused healing potions and all kinds of elixirs. And for what, I thought? Why did I collect this? Why didn't I sell it? I was going to use all these items, but I ended up never doing so. Why my neighbors not sleeping at midnight, they're watching TV. Hope you don't hear it. So I decided to do a little research about virtual hoarding, specifically video game hoarding. And probably if you like video games, if you played like any RPG ever, or any game that has the mechanics of loot, inventory, storing and selling items, then you probably face this situation when at some moment your inventory is literally cluttered with all kinds of goods. It's like you turn into a walk-in thrift shop. And I wanted to find out some reasons, deeper reasons that lies beneath this curious behavior, and I have what to tell you. Well, actually, I made some notes. Hope you don't mind me peeking into them from time to time. So I will not lose my thoughts. Yeah. At first, I wanted to draw some parallels with real-life hoarding, but for me, it doesn't feel like it works this way, because in real life, hoarders are usually people in difficult life situations, people maybe with mental issues, which forces them to accumulate some enormous amounts of items, of objects, which may seem useless to us, but for those people it's not garbage, and it's a real problem. People are struggling with it, people need help. But in video game, there's no problem with storing hundreds of different items, and luckily for us in video games, these are just little icons in our inventory, because if this were a real object like in 3D, then yes, maybe in Cyberpunk or in any game at our camp, it also looked like a hoarder's house filled with all kind of garbage to our necks. So yeah, and I found out a few mechanisms and reasons connected to that behavior. To begin, let's figure out what makes us to collect all this loot, all these items in the first place. Because sometimes we deviate miles away from our intended path in game to just check every abandoned building or suspiciously looking tree or some cave, maybe, in hope of finding maybe some cool weapon or some holy grail of this game that will dramatically change our gameplay. But most likely we end up with finding some, few coins, rotten tomato, maybe some generic brown boots or whatever. But after that, we don't usually take that life lesson, and next time we see something suspicious where we can find loot, we just rush to it again, like some gambling addicts, hoping that maybe this time we will win the jackpot. And of course, this has to do with our brain and with our brain chemicals, with our dopamine, because our brain doesn't really makes a difference between achievements and obtaining some goods in real life and in virtual life. So every time we get something, it rewards us with dopamine, like addicts. Yeah, sorry you have to hear that. And what adds to that in video game we get that stuff for free. Because when is the last time you get something for free in real life, unless it's, some advertisement flyers or herpes, But in the game, we have free item. We can find really valuable things everywhere. So this is the first step. This is the mechanism that triggers us to gather everything. Most likely, the anticipation of getting this loot will be more vivid, more emotional for us than actually getting this item. Because we rush into that crate with loot to check it, and then we get some maybe not even useless stuff, maybe we get even good stuff. Like, for example, in games like Destiny, which I sadly play, you can spend hours in some raid activity, and the feeling that you will get something cool is much better than actually obtaining this item, because the next moment it goes somewhere to the back of your inventory, like it's not your pockets. It will more be suitable to imagine it as a whole warehouse of goods, and goes to the depths of that warehouse and probably stays there forever collecting dust. And we are already on the way to get something new, something else, something better. We're going to talk about evolutionary instincts, because our brain cannot keep up with the evolution of our society, and it still lives in a stone age where we are basically monkey, and it plays by the old rules that the one who collects the more goods will most likely survive. Well, there are still problems of starvation, there are still very difficult situations in some countries, but if you play in video games, you probably are not surviving somewhere on a dumpster or maybe in a desert. But our brain still thinks that you do. And the very knowledge that you own a lot of shit makes you comfortable. In the game, it gives you the feeling that you are prepared for any scenario. You can face any boss, any apocalypse, any fight. And many modern games are designed that way, that it's hard to predict which item you will need the very next moment to trigger some conversation, or maybe which one will be helpful with the very specific battle mechanic. So it makes us anxious to part with our loot. Maybe that wooden spoon you are bringing with you from the beginning of the game will be specifically useful for some quest. Who knows? Who knows? Maybe you are a wizard, but you're still dragging that steel sword with you in RPG game, just in case. Well, maybe you won't be able to kill some boss as a wizard, and you need a sword, a good old sword. Now let's talk about cognitive biases and emotional connections to that objects. Cognitive bias is that the idea that we value some items more just because we own them. What is that called? Endowment effect. As far as I understand, it's a theory that, yeah, we'll be clinging to some objects only because they're ours, and we're not ready to part with them even if they are more or less useless. Another property of our psyche that contributes to the case is our ability to be emotionally attached to something, to objects, even if they are not real. For example, we can be sentimental about some really shitty weapon that we obtained at the very first tutorial mission, and although literally like half of hour later and a few levels later, this first sword or a gun becomes as useful as male nipples, it's still hard for us to part with it. It reminds us of the path we already been through. Or, for example, it may be some item given you by NPC that is dear to your heart, and you find it, or maybe it's some boss that you spent really a lot of effort fighting, or it's a very hated character. You disliked him so much that you carry the loot from him like, you know, some ancient warrior will carry his head on a stick attached to his, I don't know, battle horse or whatever. I don't know much about ancient warriors, but I think it might work that way. We can be just sentimental, and this is not just our inventory, it becomes like a family photo album or a scrapbook with dear memories. This is not garbage, this is memories, all right? Yeah. So what do we have next? Oh yeah, sometimes information overload leads us to decision paralysis, like when the clutter in our inventory reaches its critical mass. Even looking at all this stuff and thinking that we have to sort all these items and make decision about what to do with each of them, this hurts my brain. Like, I can tell for myself, this hurts my brain, and even thinking about it already feels like work. And I play video games to forget I have to work and not to actually make an additional effort. So sometimes it's just easier to, you know, pretend these items do not exist. Maybe best case scenario to organize them, and when it's organized, it's already not a junkyard but a storage. So unless these virtual things do no harm, they don't limit our storage somehow. They do not affect our gameplay, they just sit there in our inventory. So our psyche tells us don't do anything with it at all, like maybe later if you have the mood. But who will have the mood to actually spend evening or maybe a few evenings just picking the garbage out of their inventory and making decisions whether to sell this item, disassemble it, or leave it and actually use for what, to calculate why would you even need it? That's bullshit. But that's how it works, and we end up with inventories with hundreds and maybe thousands of items if the game engine allows us. Oh, and of course, loss aversion and fear of regret that you discarded some item. Because, like I said earlier, we want to be ready for everything, and our brain tells us that maybe we still need this. We're afraid, what if right now we won't need it, and maybe the next moment it may be useful. I had the thought entire time playing the Baldur's Gate. I thought like maybe I don't need this weapon right now, but its properties will be useful in the next location where I don't know what may happen. And this led to the situation where I could make the merchants nervous because like what, you have 3 kinds of armor for sale? What a loser. Hold my beer, I have like 12 in Carlock's pockets and a few dozens at my camp. Of course, the resources scarcity and especially seasonal changes. This is usually used in online games. All these limited time offers that actually feel like some Black Friday sale, and most stuff on those limited offers is not so useful. These items might be good but not too convenient and not too life-changing, or this might be some cosmetics, but if it's rare, it's a must-have, right? If it's rare, it's valuable. Well, at least should be, by our brain's logic. So this makes us put a lot of effort into getting these items, and then another thing happens. Our brain projects our social interaction and all the stereotypes about wealth and status on this video game, because nothing will say to other players that you put a lot of efforts and you are cool, that showing off some rare stuff, some limited edition outfit that is maybe shiny and beautiful. No one else has it. This makes you feel unique, and this is normal for us, for humans, to feel special, to feel unique, to make someone envy you. Well, most likely no one will be envy of you for video game items. Same goes for achievements. Like really people who complete all the achievements in their favorite games, this is really admirable. I respect those people and their dedication. Like if the game said that there is 500 collectibles, then 500 collectibles must be obtained. And it's like winning a medal at the Olympics, but in the game. Well, exactly, our brain doesn't make real difference between some real life achievements that may be more socially recognizable and just in-game achievements for performing a successful 360 no-scope, if you know what I mean. And to add a pinch of shit to this barrel of dopamine from video game loot, let's talk about downside and dark side of this phenomenon, because sometimes this behavior may reflect some psychological issues and insecurities. First of all, the biggest downside of collecting a lot of cool stuff in games is that obviously it isn't real. And it's okay to do that until the point where you put all your efforts into video game achievements and stuff and completely abandon your life and doing anything to improve your life. You can argue with this idea, but before you do so, I dare you to go on a date and tell that girl about your achievements of completing Dark Souls for 9 times, and 3 of those were on a piano keyboard, and see the reaction. Right? If the reaction is good, you should stick to that person. For example, if you missed your work and didn't get paid, but instead you just obtained some video game stuff, this might be not the best decision to do. Or for example, if you missed the opportunity to chill with your friends or relatives or loved one, and instead you choose to hang out with video game NPCs. I'm not like telling about real life people that are really annoying. Really, there are some sort of acquaintances in my life that I'd exchange for a few dialogue lines with, I don't know, Judy in Cyberpunk. But yeah, you got my point, I think. Escapism and avoiding real-life challenges. This is connected to the previous topic. When you replace your life with virtual life completely, like at all, you don't really care about your health, both mental and physical. You don't try to at least maybe clean your room, not mention clean your game inventory. This might be a concern inside. And probably one more thing I can think about is impermanence of these items in the game. In fact, they exist as long as you play this game. When the final boss is killed, when you see the credits roll, everything you worked so hard on do not exist anymore. So you might feel not that good if you were too connected to that items, or if you put too much effort and abandon some real-life challenges for the sake of game once, and now the game is over. Even though online games tend to exist longer, every game will be sooner or later outdated. People will stop playing it, and probably its servers will be closed. Well, except World of Warcraft. I wonder if this will exist forever. Yeah. And not everything is so bad. In fact, there are good effects too. For example, this may help you, me, everyone who does that, to fight with anxiety. Yeah, because anxiety in real life comes from some insecurities, lack of control, like I said. But in real in-game world where you own a lot of goods, where you are in control over those things, where you can predictably gain some new items, this makes you feel more comfortable. This may help you cope with the stress. So it may be a good practice to distract yourself from some stressful situations. There will be no conclusion, because it's not good or bad. Digital hoarding is just a reflection of our human nature, our primal monkey instincts that tell us to collect everything, useful or not, and store it as much as the storage space allows us, because it's always better to own at least something than nothing at all, And that's okay, as long as it does not create you any problems in real life and it brings you joy and fun. It's okay. The whole genres of games, like looter shooters, are built around these mechanisms, these mechanics. Yeah, as for myself, I'm not the one to judge. I do this too. My Destiny 2 inventory is cluttered with all kinds of outdated weapons. Some of them I just don't know if I should dismantle or not. Some of those are given to me by some long-gone NPCs like Brother Vance or Usher Mir, and although those weapons weren't so good even when I received them, and now they are complete trash, I still keep them just as a memory of those characters. So, if that's okay with you, feel free to hoard stuff in video games to your heart's content. And if everyone will tell you, maybe some video game friends will tell you, why is your inventory so cluttered? Why is it in such chaos? Tell them, shut up. And give me permission to do that. I allow you to do this. Okay, blame everything on me. I don't mind. I don't care. At least as long as you're keeping an eye on your mental health. Because after all, video games were made for the whole idea of doing things we cannot afford ourselves to do in real life, having what we can't have. For example, flying cars, or a whole bunch of loyal friends that will risk their life for you on a deadly adventure in magical cursed lands. So, yeah. And this is all for today. I was really glad to see you. And if you're going to sleep, I wish you all the sweetest dreams. And if not, then I wish you all the best day ahead of you. and we'll see each other real soon in the next roleplay episode of ASMR. Until then, bye. The battery is dead.